John!
What?
Red 7!
I don't know what Red 7 means.
Hot route!
I don't. What is hot route?
Will you just go stand on the other side, please?
Down!
Come on.
Ready! Down! Set! Hut! 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 Hut!
Hit me! Booyah! That's what we call a sack lunch. Nom, 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 nom.
It's time for the Soonerscoop.com postgame show presented by Eskridge Lexus in Oklahoma City. Eskridge Lexus is the official travel partner of Soonerscoop.com podcasts. Now, here's your road crew, Carrie, Eddie, and Bob, wrapping up all the action and reaction from this week's game.
All right, welcome in. It is time for yet another and the final home game edition of the Eskridge Lexus podcast, where I'm joined by the entire crew, including a man who said he wasn't going to do the podcast this week, but because of the outcome of the game, he has decided that he must be a part of the podcast, which probably means I don't have to do a whole lot tonight because it seems like I have a lot of angry people in the studio with me tonight. Eddie Radosevich is here. Edward R. Dosevich. Bob Brisbillo is here as well. He's very tired. Eddie's got his 5-hour energy. We've got a taste test coming, a live taste test of Coop's new Grand Sport Porter that just came out. I'm looking forward to it. Eddie is at home with his F.I.D.O IPA, and it is time for the Eskridge Lexus Postgame podcast. Sooners win it. This is one of those scores that you want to forget, so I have to look to make sure I'm reading right. 55-40 was the final.
That's not bad. I mean, they played really good offense tonight. Texas Tech, it wasn't too bad.
No, they played Kansas.
Oh,
No, Kansas scored 40 points against them tonight.
God.
The Kansas Jayhawks with Puka Williams.
Most points Kansas has scored against Oklahoma since 1996.
That was a John Blake team.
It was a John Blake team.
His very first year. 23 points in the fourth quarter.
Was that in Norman? In 96?
Oh, in 96?
I think that was in Lawrence.
They just put it in the game notes. I mean, where do we even begin?
I think that was... sorry, I'm going to go off the random Kansas game reference. I think that was the year like Eric Van had like a 99-yard touchdown run or something against
That
Oklahoma.
would have been at Kansas, I think. I'm pretty sure.
That seems right, but I could be off by a year or so there. But it was something just like that.
But anyway, Sooners give up a lot of yardage to Kansas State, and the embarrassing part was on the ground. 348 yards rushing that they gave up to the Jayhawks, just 176 in the air. But guys, it looks like this defense is going backwards.
Looking like it.
They got worse. Like I keep telling people that. Like I don't understand how I thought they bottomed out at Texas. I came on here. I said that the slate had almost been cleaned. They got rid of Mike. They were talking the big game. They played well against TCU and Kansas State, who are JV offenses. We've gone over all that. In 3 consecutive weeks, they've continually put out worse performances. And tonight was the worst. Like, I thought that they hit rock bottom against Tech. I thought they hit rock bottom against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And tonight was worse than both of those games.
What's so embarrassing in my mind, they fought so hard to make OSU one-dimensional, and then Taylor Cornelius goes
Which I never
off.
bought that whole thing. I mean, that post-game press conference was a disaster.
Okay, well, he goes off for 500 yards. So they focus on stopping the pass, and then they can't stop the run. It's like, are they not smart enough to be able to do both at the same time?
No, they're not good enough. They're not good enough. That's the problem.
Well, when you have Justin Broyles out there for extended periods of time trying to stop people's run games when they're not really throwing the ball, and you don't adjust to that, I find a big problem in that.
Yeah, they were in the nickel base. Made no sense at all because Kansas, I don't think, rarely ever went 4 wide.
Okay, well then even if they threw out the right defense, even if they threw out the right concept or whatever you want to call it, they can't tackle anybody.
It was terrible.
I mean, you guys would probably be able to tell me better than being down on the field and watching the game, but from what I've heard, Kenneth Murray was awful tonight. And
I'm not sure if he wasn't awful.
He was highlighted on a bad defensive night. Like, that was just so embarrassing, to put it bluntly. That was an embarrassing performance. For the third time this year, we're sitting here after a home game. They basically lost it. They basically lost the goddamn game.
Look, Kenneth Murray is not Rocky Kalmus. He's not Teddy Lehman. He's not Torrance Marshall. He's not a guy whose sole purpose on that field is to go into a hole, meet you there, and knock your block off. That's not him. And we've talked about this before. OU is trying to get more physical on all three levels, defensive line, linebackers, and secondary. Well, they got worse on the defensive line because they didn't have Neville Gallimore tonight, and it was shocking how bad they were without him, we should probably just name him the Eskridge Lexus Player of the game right now, because they were dog shit without him run defense-wise. And Fa'amatu really, didn't do anything. There was a time when they put, I think it was right before a 45-yard run by Puka Williams, where they shuttled in Overton and somebody, maybe it was Ronnie Perkins, I can't remember, but they had him in third and long, and they were having a hard time getting so they changed defensive linemen and defensive ends, and all of a sudden they just ran right down the field. And it was just like, what are you doing?
Josh, hello.
Hi, I'm here.
I mean, just your quick thoughts on the shit show that was.
Well, while you guys were talking, I wanted to start with, because the missed tackles, it's unbelievable. These things...
That's shit that happens at Putnam City Optimist on a Tuesday night when there's 10-year-olds playing.
And guys, it was everybody. Our boy Trey Brown, who we've loved on and talked about, I saw him more than once. And the thing that I keep seeing, and I keep watching, and Joel Klatt actually talked about it, they keep breaking down and waiting for guys to come run to them. And then you get a guy like Puka Williams in space who's going to shake you and go run past you. There's never anybody that attacks at the point of when the tackle's going to happen, they're always flat-footed waiting for the ball carrier to get to them. And it just, time and time and time again, it just doesn't work. But I want to, this number is going to, it's even worse than I thought it was.
I looked it up.
PFF has their grades out.
Here's what the worst thing is: the person who's leading them in missed tackles.
They should just say they all failed. They all failed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone in the green?
They had two defenders. This is Kerry and I's day. They liked Amani and Parnell Motley. And I thought Amani Bledsoe really did have a pretty good day.
He seemed fired up to play Kansas.
Caleb Kelly always grades out pretty well, too, which is strange.
16 missed tackles.
And guess who led them in missed tackles? Did you notice that, Josh?
Well, I see a bunch of twos. I don't see...
Oh, no. Okay, I was looking at something else, yeah. I'm in the missed tackles.
I thought I was missing somebody that had 3 or something.
But even being tied with 2, Curtis Bolton should not have as many missed tackles as anybody else on that team.
I mean, Curtis Bolton should get a negative grade for allowing the 8-yard run that was snuffed out 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
That's becoming a move of his. I talked about it during the game. He might need to consider shot put after football's over. That spin and toss, it's an impressive maneuver that he seems to be mastering.
By the way, you know why Amani Bledsoe graded out so well? He batted down 3 passes tonight.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
He's the only person on that defensive line where you're like, okay, he did his job tonight.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, they are fundamentally, they can't do anything.
By the way, Brennan Radley-Hiles next to last in defensive grades.
He
47.
Another just awful night for him. I mean, it's almost getting comical.
He's not a very good safety.
No. He's never going to come downhill and tackle somebody.
But he's a safety carry.
Yeah, he's obviously a safety. He's just not any good at it.
And it's gotten comical, to be honest with you. You can get mad, you can get angry, you can watch it and hope that they just tackle somebody, but it's almost comical how bad they are.
They might be worse than Texas Tech's defense was 2 years ago that Baker shredded.
Is this the worst defense OU has ever put on the field?
Yes,
in the
I
history
feel
of the
confident
program?
in saying that. It is the worst defense OU has ever fielded.
I mean, you have David Beatty over there who got fired 2 weeks ago, and they were in the game.
His players are playing harder for him than OU's are playing for Lincoln Riley.
100%. 100%. And, we can get into the players talking after the game or whatever, but I thought it was very interesting. I asked, Amani Bledsoe, Kenneth Mann, basically, who are your leaders on this team defensively? They have nobody that holds anybody accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was talking to Shin after the game, John Shin, and I thought he put it perfectly. They're shameless. Like, they can't be shamed into feeling bad about their performance. They are so bad that it's become normal to them.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, we'll do better next time. We got to get better.
Instead of being angry about it, they're just like, oh, we'll watch the film, get back out on the practice field. Next week's the last regular season game. Like, how can you continually say you're going to get better and they don't do anything?
I will say that Lincoln Riley came off a lot better in this press conference than he did after
Well,
OSU.
if he would have said anything else, I would be sitting here saying he should be fired.
Here's Lincoln Riley just talking about the defense in general after the game.
3 games in a row with 40 points. They average almost 10 yards a rush. You said earlier this week you think the defense is close. Do you still feel that way?
I still feel like we can be what we need to be. Obviously, we didn't take a step this week that we expected to take. So, I can't sit here and say that, say something that's not true. We didn't take a step that I felt like we would take. We felt like we defended the run well all year. And we really put a lot of emphasis on our pass coverage, which, again, thought was better. And then we kind of sprung some new leaks, really. But no matter if teams are throwing it, running it, it don't matter. You got to tackle. At the end of the day, you have to tackle. We have guys there. We have a lot of times calls that should be shutting things down. Where free guys are there to make plays that we got to go make them. And we're playing a little too hesitant, not playing as aggressive as we need to play as far as triggering and making plays. And if you do that against really good athletes in space, you're gonna pay. And we did tonight. So I still feel like there's capability in that room to get it done, but obviously we're gonna have to play much better than we did. We're gonna have to tackle much better than we did.
See, and he's at least acknowledging what you guys were talking about, which is you just have players standing flat-footed, Josh, not meeting people at the point of attack, not moving forward at the ball, when the ball is snapped and running back gets a handoff. I mean, that's what he's talking about right there. At least he said it. Birds chirping.
Josh,
I thought his comments were much. I mean, and that's what we talked about in the midweek. It didn't have to be Ruffin McNeil's terrible and this whole staff's got to be fired. I mean, we know he's not going to say that. But at the same time, you can own that this is nowhere near acceptable.
And he needed to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it blows my mind, to be honest, that they have gotten worse.
I'm glad Mike Stoops got out.
Yeah,
because this group of players is going to drive every. I'm surprised Mike Stoops got out of there without murdering someone. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, mentally, he has to be in a very healthy place right now that he doesn't have to put up with the shit anymore.
The Mike haters would never own it. But in their heart of hearts, they're like, I really wish we could have just kept him till the end of the season.
Well, at least
it would be better than that.
I got a lot of that tonight.
At least there were players that are scared of him. Yeah. I don't think that there is no accountability on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
There is no accountability.
Well,
the problem with Mike was that they were scared of him and they would quit. His attrition was a problem.
Well, and that gets
program.
into the whole situation and I've been saying it for weeks, and I hate saying it about college kids. They're just a soft football team.
You love saying it.
They're a soft football team.
But you don't hate saying it about college kids.
I mean, I do in the fact that they're student athletes or whatever. It's kind of shitty on my part, but I'm kind of a shitty human being. So it just, the whole thing right before halftime really kind of pissed me off, to be honest. I mean, you just got your ass run by Kansas in the first half, and then you're going to act like a bunch of tough guys
and start a fight on their sideline.
Maybe you should tackle somebody, and then and I saw Curtis Bolt or Curtis Lofton said something about it on Twitter. How can these guys continually? I mean, you get ripped by Dusty Dvorak, Teddy Lehman, Curtis Lofton, some of the greatest names that have played on the defensive
All
side of the football.
Americans.
And this group is just like, we tried hard.
We're this close.
We're just gonna F.I.D.O. Maybe instead of forgetting it, you should remember what you've done. Tackle somebody. It really pisses me off.
Here's something I asked Lincoln Riley about after it was over, which is, God, I thought I titled this "Reach Kids," which I did. I was trying to read. I thought I said "Reach Girls." Here's Lincoln Riley. Here's me asking him about just getting through to these damn kids.
Lincoln, you're 11 games in. It's been such a roller coaster defensively. How much of a challenge is it for you and for Ruffin just to kind of try and reach these kids here towards the end? I mean, you've probably tried every which way to get through to guys.
It's a challenge, but I mean, coaching's challenging. You know, that's our job. That's our job title. You know, is you try to get the absolute best out of each and every kid, out of each and every unit. We hadn't played up to our capabilities here the last few weeks, but I don't look at it discouraged because I still see a group that I know is capable of playing good football. I still see some really good individual players in there. I see a group that has the potential to play well enough for us to be the team we want to be. And so this isn't the NFL. You know what I mean? We're not going to go sign some guys off waivers. We have our guys. I'm fine with the guys we have. We got to coach them better, and they got to go play better and play up to their capabilities. And so, you know, these moments, especially this one we're getting ready to go into, you can either sit here and feel sorry for yourself or say, well, we had, you know, whatever. I can't even begin to tell you all the guys we had out today. I mean, this was the most decimated team by injuries this game here today in any of my 4 years here at Oklahoma. But who cares? This is the end of the season. This is part of it. If you're going to win championships like we expect to win around here, you got to find a way around it. And so we're going to have to do that as coaches, and our players are as well.
I can't believe you didn't say that in Cartman voice. How do I reach these kids?
It's just...
You're the goddamn coach. Figure it out.
Well, that's their problem. They haven't figured it out. Instead, they got a bunch of guys running around with sledgehammers starting fights. They can't tackle.
You guys are going to love this. So literally as that was playing, I'm watching the game again. I've got it going while we're doing this. I'm putting myself through this.
Was that a recruiting promise, by the way? Like, they told Buki if he came to OU that he could run out with a sledgehammer every game.
That they'd never use.
Nobody else runs out with it. It's only Buki. It's obviously his idea.
You guys aren't going to like this, but it really doesn't bother me that much.
I don't care. I mean,
it's just funny that they never get to use it.
Yeah, that is true.
They just have it. They just can't do anything.
I mean, thinking
it.
that this defense can force any turnovers is a joke. They can't even get a tackle. They can't even get a tackle for loss.
It shows you that they're in horrible position all the time.
All the time.
Right.
Guys, I'm going to push through because this has to be finished.
Okay.
So as that's all going on right there at the end of the half, literally as that quote was playing is when I hit that part in my recording. And you see it all getting broken up, and all of a sudden I see somebody, and he's doing, you know how you do with your hands, like when, especially the players, like when somebody's talking, they kind of do that mouth thing with their hands, you know, the thumb. And who else would be doing it but Brendan Radley Hiles?
Mm-hmm.
He's doing that to the Kansas sideline like they're just talking. And I'm like, that's amazing irony. Like that irony is apparently lost on the young freshman because that's really all we've seen him do this year.
Well, it's very obvious that he's really immature. I mean, is immature the right word? Because what he's done on the field has given me no...
Immature might be the nicest thing to call it.
I would say unaware of himself, like just no idea,
not self-aware,
to people around him. Because he's not immature. Like I've talked to the kid. Like he's a sharp kid. He's a smart kid. Pretty thoughtful. The times I had a chance to talk with him in San Antonio last year, I liked him. He came across well, but just knowing he knew the expectations were there. He put a lot of them there on himself.
Is he like the new age Captain Equipment? Like, you know, Josh, when you probably played football, I played football. Like, you would have guys on your team that had every little pad you could have.
Yeah.
the hand pads and the special, hip pads and stuff, and they looked like a bike catalog or a Nike catalog or what they had. And I'm sure it's like the thigh pads, but like they were Captain equipment, but they sucked. They weren't any good.
We still see that at
every
camps.
other finger taped, like above the knuckle, below the knuckle, like it would be perfect.
Wasn't that kind of how what's his Kentucky quarterback now?
Terry Wilson.
Oh, Terry Wilson.
He was very like I'm going to be Robert
Terry
Griffin.
Wilson he looked like Eddie was talking about with Kyler earlier this year. He was a guy like that dude looks good in a uniform. Like he just looked like he had it. You knew he looked in the mirror before he walked out.
He spends extra time shifting his pads around and stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem is Kyler can play. He's better than almost anybody.
You can do that if you can play. And that's more of what I'm talking about. Like if Brennan Radley Hiles was doing all this stuff on the field, cool, man. You do what you want to do. You look like a jerk when you do it and you're not producing anything.
But you can almost. I mean, Trey Norwood was flexing at one point during the game.
Yes. Right before, I think, was it Kansas when they scored on the 4th down?
Yes. He was flexing.
It was right before the running back pass.
Right.
When over Robert Barnes. That's exactly when it was. Yeah. And, like, he's coming out and he's, like, flexing. And I'm like, dude, no. That's you're the last dude on this roster that needs to be doing that sort of thing. Because while Buki hasn't been great, he hasn't been awful. He's just been a guy.
Yeah.
Norwood's been awful, and he was worse tonight than he was against Oklahoma State.
And Jesus,
that's saying something.
Well, and Kansas is running the same play that everybody else is running now, which is that little flare out to the outside where Norwood
they don't have
Norwood plays off the ball so far
Mm-hmm.
that they know that he's not going to defeat a block.
He's not strong enough to beat
the wide receiver.
The wide receiver.
Yeah,
you know who would try and go do that?
Parnell Motley
or Motley. You could take either one.
I mean, this staff isn't changing shit in 4 days. They got 4 days to figure it out before they go to Morgantown.
To me,
and to me, the Caleb Kelly stuff has added a lot of confusion to this defense.
You think?
I don't know, Josh. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I had someone ask me tonight, like, what would you say is OU's base defense? And I'm like, I don't have a clue. Because sometimes they've got a 3 down front that's a true 3 down, and the next time it's Ronnie Perkins is out playing a wide 7, so it's basically a 4-man front, but he's standing up. And then sometimes you got the over, like it's so convoluted right now.
Got the
like
dime.
All we heard was it was going to be simplified.
They got the dime where they've got all 3 of their corners in there.
Yes. And the only defense I really haven't seen them run is the one that everybody else in the Big 12 is slowly moving to with that 3 safety look that Iowa State has kind of mastered and made a really useful grouping. You don't really see Oklahoma do that, partially because they don't have 3 safeties that are really safeties. They're just 3, corners. So it's just bizarre what they're doing right now. And I was thinking about it about halftime. You know who OU needs, Kerry? They need to hire Phil Bennett for a week. You know what? We're just going to blitz the bejesus out of West Virginia. We're going to give up plays. That was going to happen anyways. We are just going to blitz and blitz and blitz and hope we create a couple turnovers.
Well, and they have, Ruffin has the worst damn luck. Like, he had a play tonight where he brought Caleb Kelly around the left edge, and then he brought Kenneth Murray around the left edge. Like, I don't know what they saw, but all they did was run the ball up the middle, and it went for like 25. Because they had no linebackers in the middle of the field anymore.
I just think of how close Buki and Trey Norwood tried to be for some of those blitzes, and they just fell short time and time again. And then there was one where Buki got hit by an offensive tackle, so he drifted to the side and didn't even try to keep going with it.
I'm mouthing something. We're watching TV. Laura Rutledge got killed on the sideline today doing an SEC network game.
What about there was a camera girl in the OU game that got murdered. It was actually on that Robert Barnes play.
Oh, was it? I didn't see that.
You got to keep your head on a swivel down there.
Girl got taken out.
Not for the faint of heart down there.
By the way, no, it's not. Eddie will tell you. He's got his head on a swivel. Lincoln Riley was asked, I believe by Bob after the game, about injuries. Of course, Trey Sermon left, did not return, actually came out in a boot and street clothes for second half. TJ Pledger was basically a decoy, I think, fully dressed out. What was weird is they let Alex Dalton play the last play of the game.
I thought that was pretty cool. Senior day.
It was cool, but
Get him
it's
out there.
scary. I mean, the guy's got a ACL.
Torn ACL, yeah.
Put Brecken Hager out there, and he might go after it.
Yeah, he probably would.
But here's Lincoln Riley not telling you anything about injuries after it's over.
Well, I mean, we have a number of long-term ones. I think you guys all know, who those guys are. You go on down the list. There's about 10 of them we could name that, we'll see. We'll see how they go. I don't think any of those guys are extremely long-term, but, we'll just have to see going into short week here how we progress.
See, I was so disappointed in you, Bob. You didn't accost that press conference. You should have just started going down that list for him.
Mark Jackson, Neville Gallimore, Jordan Parker. Like, where the heck did these guys all of a sudden not suit up from?
Don't you think that some of it is those guys were nicked up? They were playing Kansas, and they wanted to get by without him.
Well, they should have learned by now they can't just do that. They need everyone.
Well, maybe the coaches are to blame for that.
Well, I mean, technically they did because, hey, we won.
Yeah, they did. I won by 15. Congrats.
There were no other people would be glad to just win tonight, which was good.
No,
I think they knew how bad that came off.
I mean, if you walk out of that game and you think that you're proud of what you just put out there, if you're part of the team, you probably should either be fired or have your scholarship taken away. And I don't think it's out of the question that a new defense coordinator should come in and tell every player on the defensive side of the football
their scholarship is on the line.
Scholarship's on the line, and you have to prove it this summer that you want to be around here.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's so bad. I keep saying that, but it's offensively bad.
I want to keep talking about the defense, but there are some things we have to do. It is the post-game podcast brought to you by Eskridge Lexus.
Eskridge Lexus is all about embracing the best. That's why they are the official travel partner of the Soonerscoop.com podcasts. So it's time for us to recognize the Sooners' best with our Eskridge Lexus Player of the Game.
All right, Eskridge Lexus, I had a talk with Ed the other day, and he said, you know what, Sooners, make it to Arlington. We're going to hook you up again, send you down there. They are our official travel partner. They have been taking care of us all year long. They've even sent us up to Wichita to go see Marcus Hicks, who, by the way, his team actually has a worse defense than OU, I think.
84-67 last week.
Holy shit.
67-60 on Friday.
Hey, but folks, listen out there. He's going to the state championship game.
Win is a win.
Can't overcome.
You know what? I was actually talking to Kelvin Hicks' dad at one of his games. We went up there, and it was when they were giving up a bunch of plays to the other defense, and he looked at me and goes, sometimes our defense kind of reminds me of OU's defense. He didn't say it in a redneck voice, but I chuckled. But, yeah, their defense is very much like OU's defense. Anyway, we had a brand-new 2019 Lexus ES. We took up there, super luxed out. It was awesome. We've taken the Lexus LS, the 2018s, which they still have plenty of those in stock. Great deals on a car that's essentially just the same as one that's coming out this year. And the Lexus RX, we took that to Lubbock, which is a great ride for an SUV. If you're looking for an SUV or your wife, that is a great car to get. You put the seats down and go get your stuff at Home Depot or Office Max or wherever you need to go to pick up stuff. But give Ed Eskridge a call over at Lexus or check him out at eskridgelexus.com. Tell him that you listen to the Sooner Scoop podcast or you're a subscriber to Soonerscoop.com. He'll give you a sweet deal. So if you're shopping, you want a good deal on a car, go find Ed. Tell him that you want the Sooner Scoop deal and that you're a big fan of the podcast. So the Eskridge Lexus Player of the Game nominations are open.
Kennedy Brooks, the only available running back. 25 carries, 171, and 2 touchdowns.
I think you have to give him credit for not only his production, but just staying healthy. Because that was part of his job tonight.
Hey, what happened with the fumble on the first drive?
Okay, so it looked to me, and
I was shocked that they
don't know.
I just kept expecting him to review it.
Well, they went to a timeout, a very long timeout, so I have to assume that they looked at it.
Right, because all turnovers are reviewed or are looked at.
It looked like it was
stadium angle looked like his knee was down.
Yeah, it looked like his knee was down, and he hadn't fully stripped it out yet. Like he was
so
He
strange.
was yanking on it.
I thought it was a fumble. I did. I thought it was coming loose.
I mean, I'm fine. It's if you thought it, you saw it that way. I just didn't. I mean,
the ball isn't completely out of his hand, but I thought it was in the process of definitely not being where it was stable.
That's the thing. Like it to me, it was all about whatever was going to be called on the field because Bob's exactly right. It's still in his hand. You can tell it is, but it's clearly moved off of his forearm. So like it's moving,
but it hasn't been pried out by the time his knee hits the ground.
Like I said, and that's when you get into how do you see it personally. Like I'm kind of with you, Kerry. I think he still had it.
And I don't know the fine
details.
details. Yeah, I don't know the fine details of that rule.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was the first lost fumble by an OU running back in the entire season.
Well, we were watching ESPN earlier. I mean, ESPN's working hard to give Kyler some Heisman notoriety. He's always a candidate. He did have another interception tonight, but we'll talk about him, I think, more in the play of the game. But outside of that, I mean, I can't give anybody a look on defense, really. I really can't.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably go with Kyler Murray. If he doesn't play in that game tonight,
they don't win.
They don't win.
They don't beat Kansas.
How many games? Right. What would OU's record be if Kyler Murray wasn't on the team right now? Would they be 7-4?
They'd lose to OSU. They'd lose
to
Tech.
Army.
They would have lost to Army.
So 7-4.
Trying to think who else.
They lost to Texas.
They would have lost tonight.
You could make a case they'd lost to Baylor.
Not as much as you would that they'd lost to Iowa State.
I'm not going to go that far.
You're right.
They're a rape institution.
Iowa State's a better one, sure.
7-4 best case scenario without Kyler.
Yes.
How is that not like the best argument that he should win the Heisman? Like I've almost come around to the idea that Kyler Murray should win the Heisman Trophy this year. He's the most important player on the field for Oklahoma.
He's the most outstanding player in college football.
Because do you know what Alabama's record is without Tua?
12-0.
The exact same it is right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Nothing changes.
They're just not as dominating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tua is a completely worthy candidate. I get it, but it's the novelty of it. Oh crap! Alabama's really good on offense. Okay, cool. He's having to play halves of every game because everyone around him is going to the NFL. Like offense, defense, special teams. Half the coaching staff, whatever. No, Alabama's just a monster, and for some reason, nobody seems to look at it through the lens of holy crap, Murray's doing this with almost no help.
Yeah, and like you said, he's got you could count the number of key returners offensively on one hand that they had this year.
Yeah,
Trey Sermon Rodney Anderson. They haven't had him all year. That's one. I think we thought Grant Calcaterra would be more than he is, but then he's made Lee Morris into a super, at least for them, a star.
Yeah.
And then I think CeeDee Lamb has had a little bit of a disappointing year up to this point.
The last couple of weeks, for sure.
Have not been great.
No.
Marquise Brown's injury has kept him, I think, from being the guy that he would have been.
And then Carson Myers, a first round pick.
I will say Carson Myers had a really he's had a great
Marquise
career.
Brown kind of looked like himself.
A year. I still think he's beat up, Josh. There was so many times. There was one time that he hobbled off the field, and I was almost surprised that they put him back out there, to be honest. And I think that almost tells you just the lack of confidence that they have in the lack of confidence that they have in the defense, that he has to be out there. Like, every possession is so important for this team because the defense is going to give up a touchdown.
When's the last time Oklahoma didn't have to score in a game?
Shit.
I mean, like on a possession. What was the Kansas State game? A month ago?
Probably, yeah.
They haven't played a game this month, in the month of November.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were a lot of times they didn't score against Baylor late. That's why they came back.
Yeah.
Now it's 66-31.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean, they didn't have to score. They got out so big, but it was like it would have been like 66-21.
It's just incredible.
No, it's been an unbelievable season.
He's been. I mean, if you would have told me he was going to be half as good as Kyler, I would have signed up for it. I mean, half as good as Baker, I would have signed up for it at the beginning of the year. He's been better.
All right, I'm going to give you
straight up been better.
I'm going to give you my. He's not going to win it, but he deserves to be recognized. Braden Willis. He blocked a punt tonight.
He did. I thought that was more play the game, but yeah, player, sure. He's on special teams a lot.
And was one of the few guys that ran across to the Kansas sideline trying to actually break up the fight rather than getting into it.
God.
He was literally pulling guys out.
Probably because Kerry Cooks was the first person over there because he knew his guys are stupid.
He was wearing blue. They should have just let him stay on that sideline.
Kerry's like, I'm hanging out over here. This is.
I think Lincoln was the second person.
Yeah, Lincoln busted it pretty good over there.
Well, probably because he knew that half of his team would get their ass whooped because they're so soft.
He can't afford any more injuries.
And be dumb enough to do something.
All right, so let's Heisman's coming up. Kennedy Brooks, great game, but let's give it to Kyler Murray because as we're going to talk about in play of the game, he really did kind of stem the tide tonight when they needed him most or they needed a play. When they were getting kind of hung up in the red zone a little bit, he was the guy that came through for him. Bro. Okay, so that leads us now, because we've been talking about it so much, to this.
The game is over. The stats are in. Now it's time to grab a Coop Ale Works beer and raise a glass to our play of the game.
All right, it's the Coop Ale Works play of the game, and I'm going to tell you, there's a new beer on the town. I just tasted. I was waiting for this moment to taste it. It's the Grand Sport Porter that's out there now. It's dark, roasty, malty, splendid. I just had a taste. I am down. It's like it's like a lighter, kind of a lighter version of DNR. But it's got like a little coffee note in it, which I really enjoy. I like that a lot. Grand Sport is a robust porter marked by its finesse and distinct malt backbone, aromatic notes of chocolate and roasted coffee complement the full-bodied mouthfeel derived from a healthy addition of oat flakes. Man. This is good stuff.
Okay, cool, hook 'em.
What was his wife wearing tonight?
An okay, cool hook 'em shirt.
Is she insane?
I'm in love with her. She's so petty. I'm in love with her.
Is she insane wearing that around?
I might propose to her.
I don't think you could handle her.
Oh no, I bet she's insane. I bet she is absolutely insane. I kind of like it.
All right, the Coop Ale Works play of the game. I want to remind you guys, Coop Ale Works has been around for 9 years in Oklahoma City. Great local brewery. They got 7 year-round brews. They got several seasonals like this Grand Sport Porter, which is just fantastic. This might be at the top of my list. Now, 6% alcohol, by the way, Eddie. That's not too shabby.
Not bad.
Okay, so the play of the game.
There's only 2 to pick from.
Bob has said that this segment is bullshit, and there's only 2 to pick from since we got in here today.
Yep, there's only 2. That's it.
The Braden Willis punt return, that's it?
There's either the Braden Willis blocked punt, where Bolton recovered for touchdown, or Murray's 75-yard run.
I really thought Carson Meyer's catch was going to be one of those.
He almost had
an unbelievable catch.
That catch would
have been Sports Center top 10. Like, it got tipped up. Do you remember that pass? It got tipped. It was a little floater from Kyler.
Yeah.
It got tipped, and he still dove for it. It hit his hands, and then he kind of pushed it up in the air and almost caught it again, but he was getting tackled because of a tipped ball. You can do whatever you want to the receiver.
Not bad.
Do you think he would have dedicated the catch to Bob afterward?
Probably.
He should have. He owes Bob a lot.
Everything he owes to Bob.
You won the Don
In
Key?
fact, Don Key told me after he gave the award that if not for Bob, it definitely would have gone to Drew Samia only.
If I never would have written that story back in August about this is Carson Meyer's time, never would have been on the radar to anyone.
Now we need to get Carson all tribal tattooed up like Drew Samia.
It's too bad
Like
he
if
can't
you
play
win
defense.
if you win the Don Key, you have to be hard.
Like erection hard?
No, I knew you were going to go there. Like prison hard.
You know what?
Gotta get hard.
That's a good idea, Kerry. I think that
Don Key award winners should get tatted up.
No, instead of going through Benny Wiley's summer program, they should send every member of the defense to prison. That'd teach them discipline.
Yeah.
You could work on tackling
So we're
all
talking
the time.
a scared straight program.
Like a scared straight. Send
Yeah.
them to a scared straight program. Absolutely.
They could lift weights out in the yard.
Yes, absolutely. You get lifting in anyways. This works out perfectly.
For it to really work, though, it's got to have a catchy name. You know, all these programs, Scared Straight. You know, I mean, there's got to be something. So
why don't we just let him hire a new defensive coordinator and staff? How about that? Instead of sending the players to prison. They could actually implement a system.
I would ask the new defense coordinator if he'd be okay with that. And if he signed off on it, off they go.
If he said, like, I want to do this, but the administration just won't let it happen, would that get your seal of approval?
Either that or, I mean, worst comes to worst, you start chaining people to Headington. Like, kind of make Headington a prison.
Those rooms are pretty small.
I don't think that would work, though. I don't know. We'll have to workshop that idea. Anything be better than what they're doing right now.
I don't disagree.
They're just... It's... Like I said, it's so comical that, in a way, they're going to have wasted two of the better quarterbacks to ever play the game of college football with basically nothing to show for it.
Well, you know how it was after the game... your mentions, my mentions, Sooner Scoop mentions, I was looking at them all, and it was a cross-section of people that were mad. Well, one guy was, he covered all the bases. He was mad that Lincoln Riley didn't fire him after the Rose Bowl. He was mad that Lincoln Riley fired him in the middle of the season, and he's mad that he's still not here coaching this defense because that was the only shot that they had. It's like, I don't know what argument you're taking.
Yeah.
It's just that everything that Lincoln Riley did in regards to Mike Stoops was wrong.
Oh, there were several guys that came at me on Twitter. I was like, why don't you just say I'm pissed off and nothing's going to please me right now, and it'll save us all a lot of trouble.
Well, and that was the thing. Like, people were like, you need to take Lincoln Riley to task on this defense. I'm like, what do you want me to do? He already fired the defensive coordinator. He's going to hire somebody new. He's got to, or we're all going to take him to task. Because what they're doing now is a shit show, and it's getting worse. So, like, what am I going to take him to task over?
Well, that's just I get it.
He knows they're not any good. He admitted that they're not good enough.
If I had been drinking
tonight.
all day and spent a shit ton of money to come down here and bring my family, I'd be the same exact way. People are pissed off, and they should be. Deservedly so. What they put out there tonight should never happen.
Do you really think when you get a family that you're going to be able to come down and get shit-faced at OU games and then go home and tweet people?
I mean, I hope my life gets that pathetic, but it'd be fun. It would be fun.
I'm just saying, when you have a wife and kids, they're not going to let you come down to OU games and get shit-faced with the kids.
Oh, you'd be surprised. They're at a point of no return, obviously, but I don't think that anybody in their wildest imagination would have thought it would get to this level for a program like Oklahoma. Tonight was rock bottom. I'm sorry. That was worse than anything that happened against Texas. That was worse than anything that happened against Tech. I think that shit show tonight was worse than the Tavon Austin game. I think it was worse than the Baylor game. I think it was worse than maybe the Mahomes game. Like, at least Mahomes is an NFL player, a great NFL player at that. They just gave up 40 to Kansas.
Yeah.
Puka Williams.
To a dead program.
Yeah.
I was going to say, quick question. Name me Kansas quarterback.
I have no idea.
Just know it.
I couldn't
don't
name
know.
you one single player off Kansas.
Is it Randolph? I'm just guessing.
I think it's Bender. I don't
Peyton
know his
Bender.
first name. I don't know his first
Peyton
name.
Bender.
Peyton Bender.
They just put up 40. They basically won tonight.
That's
What did you tweet out that you can't believe you're watching the third game that OU
OU's
lost
lost
at home?
3 home games, and they've just happened to outscore the opponent in every game.
Yep.
Eddie, it's kind of ruining your old joke that the team who scores most is going to win. It's killing your own material.
Well, look,
This team's f***ing me. This team is absolutely screwing me over.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir, dude. I'm here. I'm still pissed off about it.
let's clear this up. Josh, we jokingly said, "Hey, Josh, we'll see you."
What was the point that you decided, like, okay,
I have to do
screw
this.
it, I have to do this?
I think it was in the fourth. Like after the punt, you're like, oh, okay, here it goes. OU's going to separate. I even tweeted, I was like, OU's going to make this look prettier than it ever was. And I get people like, oh, it's 4 quarters. This counts just the same, blah, blah, blah. And then Kansas goes down and scored, I think, twice more from there. And you're like, okay, we can't just let this be. This is gonna have to be a real thing. I'm going to have to take part in this because everybody's going to listen to this damn pod because they want to hear us yell and rant.
And that's the thing. After the punt return or after the block punt and they score, defense runs out there. You think, okay, they have a little bit of momentum.
They're going to show something.
Do you have the playbook, Bob?
Always.
How many plays did it take them to score, and what was the average of the plays? Because I felt like Kansas just marched right down the goddamn field, and there was no resistance whatsoever.
5 plays, 75 yards, 227, and a 2-point conversion. That's
They had 2 of those tonight.
That's the first drive after the block punt.
We're not talking about Kansas State. We're not talking about, Texas Tech. We're not talking about Oklahoma State. We're not talking about a good offense. They came into tonight ranked 115th in scoring offense.
And they put up 40.
And they put up 40 on you. At some point, this has nothing to do with them playing at Oklahoma. This has something to do with, having a pride about, what you're doing out there. How can you walk around campus and walk into class on Monday knowing you gave up 40 to Kansas? It blows my mind that they're okay with that. Are they okay with that? Because tonight it seemed like they were.
Let's DM all of them.
Robert Barnes actually said it.
What's your malfunction?
Barnes actually did say it. It's a win, but when we're in the locker room, it doesn't feel like it. That's not how I want to play defense. That's not how my teammates want to play defense.
Then change it. But there's no accountability.
No,
you're
right.
And there's no leadership. And I really hate to point him out, but we should have known that this defense was in trouble when they named a guy like Kenneth Mann a captain. Has Kenneth Mann done anything this year outside of the interception?
As bad
against
as he
Army?
was last year, the leap from guy that couldn't line up right to team captain was too big of a jump. I would totally agree.
He doesn't have a
with
sack. How does he not have a sack this year?
How many guys do have a sack? They don't sack anybody.
No.
They don't get any pressure on the quarterback.
Tonight.
They don't turn the ball over.
Gallimore might be the only person, and Bolton might have some from some blitzing.
The only time that they force a punt is when the team has to punt because it's 4th and 4 from their own 25. They never get in a 3rd and long.
Kansas picked up a 3rd and 16 tonight.
It was 3rd and 12.
Was it?
It was 3rd and 12.
On Trey Brown.
And I swear to God, I almost turned to Dylan Buckingham and said, if they pick this up, I'm getting my shit and leaving. And I didn't say it. And then I told him after, I was like, Dylan, I got to be honest. I was going to tell you that I was about to leave if they picked this up. I'm glad I didn't. But, it just, I don't know. I thought Jason Kersey's column on The Athletic, I thought he put it perfectly. The F.I.D.O thing is a motivational quote that you would see in a poster in Walmart.
It's an accessory.
It's an accessory.
Accessories are what those posters are
it's
called.
almost like okay. Yeah. It was almost like it's like a distraction to stay away from maybe we're just not any good.
Yeah. Because if you have to keep F.I.D.O-ing all the time.
Well, if you're forgetting it, how are you learning from it? Maybe they should remember it and learn from it.
So you could kind of see this coming after talking with Curtis Bolton Tuesday, because he's the one who could. You figure he's the one that when it gets into the locker room, he says, this shit's got to stop right now. And he took a back seat because it's not my place to do that. If it's not a redshirt senior's place to get in the ass of some of his teammates, then who the hell is going to do it?
Yeah. Kenneth Murray's a sophomore. He probably wants to be liked. Seniors are more likely to be like, look, this is how it goes. It's not about being liked. It's about being listened to.
Well, this is my last shot at it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna screw around about this. And guys, do you know what a shit show this is? Bob just dropped an ass in the middle of podcast.
Oh, he's been cursing, and I keep track of all the cursing.
I'm just saying.
Not the F
word. It's gone bad when Bob is.
I'm bringing that one out.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready for the F-bomb, Bob. Like, I'm ready. You save it for the right time, but I'm ready when you're ready.
I'm thinking at 4 a.m. in a West Virginia hotel. After they've just gotten manhandled by West Virginia.
I'm expecting it, so I don't know if it's going to happen.
If I'm not there for it, Bob, I want like 12 U's on it. I want it to be a really long, just like a really prolonged beep for Carrie to have to put in there.
Again,
that's what I want.
Again, our scripted segments have been terrible for the last few weeks. Not because we're bad, but it's just been when the team has struggled as much as they have. It's really hard to kind of come up with things, but
I don't have a clue on this one.
I would say it's either all bad or all good here.
Whose stock is up and whose stock is down? It's time for the AMC Mortgage Stock Report. If you're on the move, check in with AMC Mortgage for all your home loan needs.
All right, it's time for the AMC Mortgage, Kyle McCord from AMC Mortgage Stock Report. This is where we kind of go through the roster and talk about it was easier during the season. Although I think there's some mainstays that maybe we could talk about here. But I want to tell you guys about Kyle McCord from AMC Mortgage, NMLS number 1256166, an equal housing opportunity lender. Kyle is a good friend of mine. He's done loans for a lot of my on-air colleagues. And he and his team have been originating loans in Oklahoma for over 16 years. He's a lifelong Sooner fan, season ticket holder, and alumnus of OU. And his contact info, 405-623-3802. It's 405-623-3802. If you're thinking about a home mortgage, they handle all kinds of stuff. Kyle does at AMC. Conventional, FHA, VA, and jumbo financing, specialize in first-time home buyers, and loans requiring down payment assistance. So give Kyle McCord with AMC Mortgage a call at 405-623-3802. Okay, I'll do this. Stock down. We talked about it earlier. CeeDee Lamb.
Couple drops. Not maybe they weren't maybe called drops, but balls that Lamb catches, and one of them was definitely for a touchdown.
And it's been kind of weird because he's been getting the ball thrown to him at times where he just doesn't have any room to operate, like right up against the sideline, and he gets his feet in, and
he can't turn it,
and he can't juke and get the guy out of the way. So I think they have to look at the offense a little bit with him and see how can we get him more involved, because I don't think there's any problem getting him the ball or him catching the ball. It's just they just haven't had him as involved as I'd like to see him. So maybe not his fault for stock down, but his stock is down.
Sometimes I feel like that's Kyler's fault. I feel like the throws are a little late, and I guess if there's anything you can criticize Kyler about in his play, he kind of puts his receivers in bad spots.
You notice, like, when Calcaterra caught that pass over the middle, like, he hesitated after he caught it.
Well, I would too if I'd been murdered like three times over the middle of the field. He was
probably wondering who's going to kick my ass after I catch this.
And then he remembered, he's like, oh, it's Kansas. Okay, cool.
Well, no, he tried to put a move on a guy, and it was so awkward. It was like he just lost his mojo.
Yeah. No, I mean, stock down, I'd go anybody that was associated with the defensive side of the football tonight.
Agreed. Defense.
Fair.
I'm talking players,
as a whole, coaches
everything.
Scout team players on the offense. You obviously didn't get them ready.
I've got to stock up on defense.
Oh, God.
Neville Gallimore.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
because he
congratulations.
Stock up. He clearly is a better player than we all realize.
He got lucky tonight. I thought it was interesting too that Robert Barnes talking about we practice well. It just on Saturdays doesn't come. I mean,
Bull.
Is that denial?
What is their version of practicing well?
Yeah, I don't think they know. Like we said, they lack
don't
leadership. They don't know what practicing hard is or well.
That's a very good point.
Well, when's the last time anybody on this defense was part of a relevant defense?
Yeah. It's been a long
And
time.
that's what I said last
They
week.
don't know what good defense is.
That's what I said last week as far as it has become commonplace, but we won has become commonplace, and now they're being punished for it severely. Like,
Well, that's the problem. They didn't get punished last week by the committee.
No, and not necessarily punished in that things haven't changed, but just as far as, I mean, they've given up 40 in the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time in school history. Isn't that what the ticker
tied.
said?
It said tied.
I can't imagine what shit show that defense was. I bet the coach isn't around though.
Big say, I bet his first name might have been John or Howard.
Yeah, for sure.
You know how bad it is.
One's an
'cause
alcoholic and the other's out of football.
You think A.D. Miller's a good receiver
Yeah,
when you go
that's
up
true.
against this defense?
Yeah, it's like everybody's like, A.D. Miller's having a great camp.
We talked about that. We talked about that back when, thinking like maybe that's what this is.
Yeah, he hasn't suited up for
He hasn't
3 weeks.
suited up now.
A month.
How about
But a legit.
How about stock up for Kennedy Brooks? I mean,
he
we keep
continues
doing
to
it, but we
excel.
have to keep recognizing him.
Absolutely.
He
continues
really
to
should
excel.
have had 200 yards rushing tonight.
Stock up. I thought Cody Ford had another phenomenal game, and maybe it was because he pulled on that Kennedy Brooks touchdown.
Except for the
Looked so
penalty.
great. If you go back and
That
look
was
at
coming,
it,
though. That
was
penalty was
that a
coming.
flop?
Yes.
Oh yeah. It was.
Yes.
It was. But
Kansas was trying everything that they could. I
Yeah.
felt like to get calls, to get blocks. That one long run, the missed hold call on Curtis
Bolton. Oh my God,
that was really bad.
The crowd was losing their
stock
minds.
down. Big 12 refs.
Does
I
it
think
get
that's
a lot
fair.
lower though? I mean, like, isn't there at some point like it is where it is?
For who? Oh, the Big
For
12 refs.
Big 12 refs, like their
Yeah,
stock
they're
is
awful.
just like it can't bottom out a whole lot more. It's penny stock.
They're awful.
I'm going to say stock down, and this one, Josh is going to get nervous about this. I'm going to say stock down on the fans who boo the defense. I think it is good in a way because it lets Lincoln Riley know, hey, this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing.
Yeah, they've got booed in back-to-back weeks, by the way.
But at the same time, it's like it's just like that guy that wants to get all incensed because he wants Lincoln Riley to do something. Well, he's done something. Like, this is not... And yes, it would be better if Lincoln Riley came out and said, look, this is not our finished product. You know, we got rid of our coordinator. We've got some things to fix, and that won't happen until the offseason. But he's not going to do that.
Go stock down Buki. I'm kind of done with him for this season.
Ooh.
I think there's people that thought that like Lincoln was going to instill this defense, or Ruffin McNeil was going to instill a defense that all of a sudden they just flipped a script and they can stop people now.
There is I mean, here's the thing how I feel about Buki, though. There has never been a player that has been that hyped up by the coaching staff.
I know.
And fallen so far.
And it's the fact that maybe just all the DBs. They just keep talking. Just stop, please. For one game,
You look like a bunch of assholes out there.
Yeah, you do.
Like, how do they not see that? How do they not think that that's embarrassing?
Maybe talk
and I
about
put
that.
a little bit of blame on this right squarely on the head coach. Like, he needs to step in and say something. And I don't think he will. But
You know what? Everybody says, like, oh, he reminds me of Bob Stoops. I said, no, he doesn't. Tonight, he reminded me more of Bob Stoops than he ever has because he actually seemed a little pissed off in the postgame press when he was talking about.
Well, he has to be. I mean, that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Anybody associated with the program has to be embarrassed by the way that they played tonight.
It was almost like I felt like, oh, Lincoln's figuring out why it was that sometimes Bob came to the podium and seemed like an asshole. Because he wanted to send a message. Because sometimes when you talk to the kids...
I would have sacrificed a scout team player in front of the team.
Like, stabbed him?
Maybe shot him.
Just like cut out his Achilles at least? Just...
Sacrifice his career.
What did Jackie Sherrill do? He castrated a
bull.
A bull?
For A&M.
Maybe they need to do that this week.
That pretty much got him fired.
Castrate a...
And that was 30 years ago. 40 years ago, maybe.
Bring in a trashy West Virginia whore.
Oh my god! Got coal dust still in her hair.
Coal all over her face. You can see where people. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay, so stock up Braden Willis.
Yeah.
He blocked a punt against Kansas. I mean, that's not.
There you go. That's all it takes.
These days,
we should have higher standards than that.
We should.
Like, as a podcast, we should have higher standards.
But other than the superstars that we have to give stock up to all
Right.
the time,
We're in
who else are
game-
we going to do that to?
Game 11. You got to try to find guys now.
A legit stock down on defense. Like I know we kind of everybody. Kenneth Mann, he had a bad night.
He's had a bad year.
Yeah,
He was very good as a rotational player last year. He has not been good as a starter.
Nope, he hasn't. It's been a tough year.
They have no leadership. They have nobody that holds people accountable. They have nobody on the defensive side of the ball that can stand up and say, "Come follow me." They have nothing.
Or you're doing it wrong.
Or you're doing it wrong. They have none of that.
Like, they should have, and they don't, they should have a veteran guy in the secondary that could go to Buki and say, look, I understand where you come from, that this is the way that, things happen, but guess what? You're in college now. You're not in high school. This isn't the Deion Sanders show. Like, you
know why Deion Sanders could get away with it?
Because he was more talented than everybody else.
He was awesome.
Because he was the man.
He was good.
It's why Kyler Murray can get away with, being all swaggy.
Absolutely. Because he backs it up. It just, I think everybody's at the point, fans, even media, just kind of sick of it. They carry themselves, like you would think if you watch the way that they play on the field, you would think this team has a top 10 defense.
Yeah.
And then they start playing and they give up 600 goddamn yards.
I've compared it.
It's just, it's actually offensive to me to watch it.
I mean, I compare it to like what Miami was like in the 80s, and they would get all these penalties and all this stuff and make it so much harder on themselves, but they were so goddamn good, they beat everybody's heads in.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got a 15-yard penalty? That's okay. You're going to get a 15-yard loss right here.
Yeah.
This team couldn't have a wet dream about a 15-yard penalty. No. Or, a 15-yard loss.
No.
Guys, it really is, though. It's still the same thing. Texas Tech, they got a stop in the opening drive. They got a stop against Oklahoma State in the opening drive, if I remember right. And the same deal tonight. As soon as the first time they give up points, it's like they just go into shell shock. Like all of a sudden, oh, well, here we go again. And then it's just off the races. Like all of a sudden they just never get their feet under them again.
Which tonight was the Brooks fumble because they never saw that coming. They thought it was going to be 7-0, and all of a sudden, boom, wait a minute. The offense didn't score? Oh, shit. What the hell are we going to do about this?
And that's pathetic because Kansas, what'd they drive? That was like a 90-something yard drive.
Long drive, yes.
It's like there's been so many times in OU football history where a guy fumbles. It's like, okay, it's all right. They're going to back him up. They're going to get the ball about the 50. They'll go back in and score. Everything will be all right.
93.
Giving up 300 yards is one thing. Giving up a 93-yard drive to Kansas, that's borderline. That's borderline. Everybody should look in the mirror and honestly ask themselves if they want to continue playing football.
Look, the Kansas game is over. It was a terrible performance. They have to now move on in a short week and play West Virginia. If any lessons are going to be learned by this team, I don't think it's because of what happened in Kansas. I think it's going to have to be getting their heads kicked in at West Virginia. So I just think that this team, they've been, and that's the thing about this defense too. It's like they've never had to learn that because they've always been carried by Baker Mayfield and now Kyler Murray.
How much more?
There hasn't been a lot of tough lessons learned.
How much more
by
can their
anyone on
heads
this defense.
be kicked in?
But what I'm saying is, until you lose, that's
Who says
really
they'll lose with Kyler Murray.
No, I'm saying if they were losing and they didn't have Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield and they were losing consistently because their defense sucked, then maybe it kick in. But they keep, like when Lincoln said that last week, he's just reinforcing that behavior.
Yeah,
that we can do whatever we want because we keep winning.
That's what I keep saying is they got away with so much over the last 3-4 years that they never had to face the fact that Maybe we should make a change defensively. Maybe we should look in the mirror and get some guys that have some balls that want to play.
Yeah.
Like, that's never happened.
We've talked about this for years, guys. Oklahoma would never, even when there was a change that was so blatantly obviously needed, even just down to, okay, that guy's not as good as his backup. That guy should be starting over that guy. And nothing would happen until OU lost a game. And then they're like, oh, well, okay, now we're going to make these changes that everybody had talked about for months.
Well,
and then all of a sudden it was time to do it. Well, why did you have to die on the sword before you were willing to make an obvious move?
Honestly, I think it's because they were stubborn. I think it's stubborn. It has a little bit to do with it. I think that Bob never wanted to admit that they had a problem, obviously because his brother was the defense coordinator, but mostly because he had a bigger hand in it than anybody. He was the head coach.
Yeah.
He was the architect of the whole thing. And Kerry, I know you've talked about that before. It's like they never wanted to admit that they had a problem. They needed to somebody needed to sit them down.
But their problem was,
and I joked about it in the pregame in the staff picks, or in the Friday thing. They needed an intervention. They needed somebody to sit them down and say, "This shit isn't working."
The problem though with Bob was
they kept winning.
The problem with Bob was that it was a recruiting issue.
Yeah.
Now they're getting the recruits, but they're having a performance issue.
Well, they need. I mean, whoever takes over defense coordinator wise, he has to come in the first day and basically lay out the lines. Like
it's got to be kind of like
unless you're going to kill somebody, get out of the room.
It's got to be a remember the Titans type thing.
Yeah,
you have to come in and not be afraid that half your team's going to quit.
And
you got to lay down the law.
Maybe that would be the best thing that could happen. Is half the team could quit.
You got to know your scheme, identity. It's just so
what you're doing. You got to recruit to the scheme, the identity.
So confusing. What the hell?
And they, like I said,
guy?
They've tried to piece together a defense out of different schemes for years now, and this has led them to where they are.
And you could maybe get away with it in some conferences, but I mean, as we know, you do it in this conference, you're going to get exposed, and it's going to be ugly, and it could get uglier in Morgantown on Friday.
And guess what? Iowa State's a pretty good example. They're not recruiting really highly rated guys, but their defense is still playing well. Okay.
They know who they are.
Yeah.
They've got a home base, and OU's just like a mutt. There's no idea. There's no identity.
So OU's moving on. It's West Virginia. There's no movie trailer that's going to get them to play better that they make and put out on social media. It is time to move on. It's Lincoln Riley and his staff are charged with getting this team ready to play, and I asked him at the press conference, how important is this to your team, to your players? What do they have to give you in order to make this jump that you've been talking about?
Oh, I mean, it takes a team. You know, it takes... Of course, individual players are going to have to go handle their responsibilities and play the way they need to play. Your leaders are going to have to step up. But to win tough road games like this against a good team and what will be a really good environment, it takes everybody. Not one guy can do it. Not one side can do it. Your leaders can't just do it by themselves. It's going to truly take the village. And that's what we've always appreciated and loved about playing on the road. And so it's a perfect position. I mean, I told the guys in the locker room that's how it should be for us. You know, go and play on the road in a game that's going to mean so much. I mean, we wouldn't want it any other way.
And after all this talk, after all this bitching and moaning, this is still a team that's not out of the realm of possibility for them to win West Virginia. Do I think it's going to happen? Right now, I'd say I think they probably finally meet their match. But
there's just so much going into that game that it just seems like a game that they're going to lose. Like the 20-game road win streak, playing with fire all season and never really getting burned outside of the Texas game. I don't know. It'd be interesting. It's going to be a fun week. It's going to be a short week, but it's going to be a fun week. I always enjoy the trip to Morgantown, and I don't even know if I should say this, but playing out when I was walking out of the facility after the post-game show, I don't know if the music was just coming from the equipment room or if it was coming from the locker room. I couldn't tell, but
Country Roads?
John Denver Country Roads was blaring.
Interesting.
So
from inside the facility.
From inside the facility. So I don't know if it was coming from the locker room. I think it was just coming from that equipment room there, right off the Red Room. But
was it Baker's version?
No. It was
Thank God.
only John Denver who met his match
Rest
in an
in peace.
airplane.
Yes, he did.
Who
Bob?
would you rather get in an airplane with, Buddy Holly or John Denver? We'll discuss on the Unofficial 40 next week.
Bob, any final thoughts before you get out of here? Before we all get out of here?
Let's
Thank God.
get the hell out of here.
Lincoln Riley did record his show tonight, so I guess we recorded ours as well. So, Josh, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it, man. I know that wasn't the plan. I know we won't have to worry about you next week.
Yeah, guys, I want you to know I'll be up in about 3 hours with my little girl. So, you guys enjoy your sleep tomorrow morning or this morning.
I got the basketball game.
What time's the basketball game, Bob?
Okay, yeah, 1.
Yeah, you weren't there, Bob. I don't want to hear that shit.
It's the big Wofford game.
See, having sex isn't all it's cracked up to be sometimes, is it?
Truth.
All right.
There are strings.
Thank you to everybody for listening. Thanks to Eskridge Lexus. We'll see you guys back here after West Virginia. Will be on the road, but still giving you a podcast right here on the Eskridge Lexus Postgame Podcast from SoonersGroup.com.